Hi, Julia. Got your email. So I'm taking a look at your homework here, and a couple of things that I want you to change or add, and I can give you some tips on the things that you're missing. So right here, so I like on number 19 that you told me what you were doing. So you divided both things by 5. But here's what I want you to do in addition. I want you to put a label up here that says ratio and unit rate. That way I know exactly what you're doing, and you divided by 5 to get your unit rate. Okay, everything from there is fine, but when you go down to letter C, I want to know how you got each step. So here you would put in a divide by 5, and then here you would say, oh, I multiplied by 60. Okay, and then you can see where your 720 came from, right? The 12 times 60. So I want you to make sure that you do that. Down here, in D, you can see that you showed me that you multiplied by 12, and so that's easy to see. Okay. For E, I believe they ask you to do a ratio table or a double number line. So I would go double number line here. So you have your donuts and you have your minutes, and you're going to start them at 0. And then you're going to count out by 60 donuts in 5 minutes. Whoops, sorry about that. 120 in 10 minutes. 180 in 15 minutes, so on and so forth until you get to your 60-minute mark, right? So that would be a double number line for letter E. Okay, same thing down here. So when I look at letter C, I'm slightly confused about what you're doing, because it looks to me like you're starting with 12 gallons, going to 1 gallon, and then multiplying to 12 to get back to 1 gallon, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me. So I'm not really sure what your plan here is. Now, if I open up the homework question, my version of it, which might not quite be the same as yours, says, what is the unit fraction associated with this rate? And then C, answer the question in part A using the unit rate. So I'm assuming they're asking you to answer the question, how far can it travel on 12? Okay. All right. So now I see what's going on. So you have 12 miles to the gallon. So that means 12 miles to 1 gallon. How far can it travel on 12 gallons of gas? So when I go back to your homework, what I see here is that you need to say that this is 23 miles to 1 gallon. And then you're trying to figure out how many gallons. So this would not be here. And you would multiply by 12 to get your number of miles for 12 gallons. Okay, so this one isn't correct, and you'll have to go back and fix that. Then in part D, it says set up a proportion and solve the problem. So if you're going to set up a proportion, what you're doing here is, and I'm going to, again, these two are in the wrong place. So you're going to set up your miles and your gallons. Try to use more than just one letter. And then there's the unit rate, which is what you have, and what you're trying to find. We'll just leave it at that for now. And then you have a proportion is your 2 equal fractions, and you're going to put in what you know. So you know that you go 23 miles in 1 gallon. How many miles would you go for 12 gallons? And you're going to cross multiply and solve that. Okay, so set up and solve your proportion. When you go down to number 1, you're doing a lot of good stuff here. So what I noticed so far is that you've got your unit rate here. I think your labels are in the wrong position, and that's what's kind of throwing you off. So I would have Emily up top. And let's see, hold on, let me read the question. This one I'm going over here for. Emily purchased 2.3 pounds of chicken for $6.87. If Heather bought 4 pounds of chicken, how much she have paid? And so that means that we're setting up Emily and Heather. And you're talking about pounds and dollars, okay, in whatever order that you want them in. And let's go back to that again. There, by the way, they're asking us to find a unit rate strategy. So I'm going to have to put unit rate in between those two things. But we know that Emily gets 2.3 pounds for $6.87. So that means for unit rate, I'm going to move Heather over and put my unit rate here in the middle. And then for under Emily, I put in the numbers I know. So I know that she gets 2.3 pounds for $6.87. In order to use a unit rate strategy, I've got to make one of them 1, which I'll figure out in a second, because what I want to put in next is what Heather does. Now, Heather has 4 pounds of chicken, so I'm going to put 4 pounds in the spot for Heather. Now, I put the 1 for the unit rate in the bridge spot, the one that I have both values for. So Emily has 2.3 pounds and Heather has 4 pounds. So that's what I'm going to go to 1 for. And you're going to divide by 2.3 to get that 1 and divide by 2.3 down here, which I'm not sure if you did. Looks like you didn't, okay? So that's going to give you this number. Then from there, you're going to multiply by 4 here to go from 1 to 4. So you'll multiply here by 4 as well to get this number, which is what you're looking for. Okay, so that's a little bit of a trick there. Okay, so don't try to just calculate unit rates. Let's set them up just like I did in your notes. So when you're doing this, go back and look at how I set them up in the video and how I set them up in your notes. And I think that's the only other one that you had a star next to. A lot of the rest of this looks totally fine, except you're missing some labels here, my friend. Every one of these should have 4 sets of labels. Okay, so make sure that you're doing that.